Good morning. Today is Tuesday, August 8th, 2017. This is the regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Let the record reflect Commissioners Johnson, Sobroff, Figueroa Villa, and Goldsmith are present, and we have a quorum. Number 1 on the agenda, election of officers. This item has been continued to August 15th. Number 2 on the agenda, consent agenda items. We have a comment card on 2D.
2D. Would any of my fellow commissioners like any of the other consent agenda items pulled for discussion? Okay. Do I have I'll move items 2A, B, C, E, F, G, H, I, J, and K. Do I have a second?
Second, with thanks to the donors.
Yes, thanks to all the donors. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, call the comment on item 2D, please.
We have Karen Hilfman on item 2D, which is a $570 donation from the Los Angeles Dodgers for the benefit of South Traffic Division Cadet Program.
Good morning.
No money at all should go to the cadet program, and in fact, the program should be defunded or discontinued. As you know, the Explorer program was rife with problems and disbanded. The cadet program can't be fixed either. Even 500 administrative and training fixes can't remedy the internal contradictions that doom the program to dysfunction. First of all, how did it become the LAPD's mission? And I'm reading from the recent report. To strive to improve society through the development of the city's youth by providing a safe place to engage in educational, social, and life skills development and access to pathways that can lead to a brighter future. I challenge any of you to explain how the LAPD has the knowledge, experience, and expertise and resources to do that. The concept is grandiose, presumptive, and has no grounding in reality and is doomed to failure. Secondly, another contradiction. A year ago, the program was put under the auspices of community policing. Community policing is about fixing the relationship between police and community, not so much about the future of kids and youth. It's also another cosmetic and futile attempt to ease tensions and build trust with the community. No way this can work while police policy and practice is to over-police, harass, and kill residents of color. Give the money back to the city. Have them put their money where their mouth is for real economic, housing, educational, and job development. What kids really need to survive and succeed.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve item 2D?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Item number 3 on the agenda, regular agenda items. We have.
Do we have any comments on items 3B or 3E?
We have comments on 3A, C, and E.
A, C, and E? Okay.
I believe we have one for B, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sure.
You said we had one for B?
I believe so. Let me check. I don't have it. Oh, the coyotes on me? No, sir. That one? No, B. Okay, yes, sir, we do have one for B.
Would any of my fellow commissioners like a report on item 3B, or are you okay going right to public comment?
I'm okay.
Okay, let's call the comment on item 3B, please.
3B, we have Kai Utsumi, and this is relative to the donation of fitness equipment valued at $25,000.
No, this is item
I'm sorry.
3B.
I'm lost here.
Relative to the supervisory training audit.
Kai Utsumi?
This is item 3B, sir, relative to the supervisory training audit.
I'm totally against LAPD having drones. It's more militarization and brutalization of poor black.
Sir, this is we have not gotten to that item yet.
It's unrelated.
I heard my name.
Yes, that's correct. But we're on item 3B, which is relative to the supervisory training. We'll make sure you get called we'll make sure you get called on the drone.
Why'd
Thank
you
you.
call my name?
I believe that
Okay.
it looks like a B, but it's actually an A, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve item 3A? I'm sorry, item 3B, 3B?
You already want to pass it, we already know.
3B.
Do we have a
So
second?
moved.
We have a motion and a second?
yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then you said we had one comment on 3E,
On 3E, we have 2 comment cards.
2 comments. Do any of my fellow commissioners want to report on item 3E, or can we go right to public comment? Okay, call the comment cards on that item, please.
We just walked in, can we fill out some comments?
Yes, you can. We have not gotten to 3A yet.
On 3E as well.
Okay, it's fine for you to submit a comment card on 3E.
Okay, on 3E, we'll begin with Akili and Tiffany Guerra. This is relative to the grant award for fiscal year 2017-2018 Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act program.
To ask the Jesse James to protect a bank is absurd. To allow this kind of money to go to a program that's already demonstrated it cannot work is equally as absurd. Nobody would come to you and say, listen, we want to let bank robbers protect these banks. Nobody would come to you and say, you know what, these people who have made mistakes, who have done wrong and are corrupt should be allowed $380,000 to do more of the same. Nobody would make that request. Nobody would expect that. Nobody in their right mind would even raise that. But these people will, because they know that if given a choice between us and them, they will always choose them. They know that, as absurd as it may sound, giving $380,000 to a program that has just been proven the most corrupt in our city, dealing with youth is as absurd as you can get. But yet it is on the agenda, and I bet you dollars to donuts they will approve it. Because they are here to protect the people in the institution, not the people who represent the people of LA. So they will make their decisions. They will think, well, what else can we do? Because after all, we are here to represent the institution. And they will approve the $380,000. While at the same time, youth programs in this city are going starving. While at the same time, city programs around this area don't get enough. At the same time, they will be handing out money to a proven failure and proven corruption. So, when they approve it, I want you to say boo, but loudly. Because the time for polite politics and nice discussion have ended. And yes, my 2 minutes are up, but I'll be back. Hey, so when they approve it, just say boo, because that's not right.
Come on now.
Tiffany Guerra.
So I'm asking that the commission say no to using grant money to fund the cadet program. I'm here today with Stop LAPD Spying, BLM LA, and LA CAN to present a letter to the commission with our demands that the program be ended and that funding be redistributed to community programs not run by LAPD. We want an independent investigation, and we demand that Charlie Beck be fired for negligence, and that's an important point, so I'm going to explain that further. We know that the last time the cadet manual was updated was in 2006, and that before now, no clear policies were in place with regard to one-on-one interactions, communications, or social media contact between officers and cadets. We know Chief Beck's explanation of this is that the program expanded too quickly for these policies to be set in place. But now please consider that since the cadet program started in 1962, the cadet that was raped by Officer Kane is the 29th youth trainee to allege either rape or improper sexual contact that we know of. This program has been in place under Chief Beck since 2010 and involves overnight trips in some divisions and off-site trips in most divisions. But with all the incidents of abuse that have happened, not only in the LAPD's youth program, but in other programs across the country, this chief can't see that it might happen again and even try to make changes. We hear a lot about the success of the cadet program, but based on Friday's report, there is no tracking system in place to see what the success of the cadet program is. We don't know what the outcomes for folks who complete the program are because the LAPD haven't been tracking it. So what success is this based on? Is 29 rape or assault victims success? 27 alleged abuse by officers by the time you took over the program in 2010, and you couldn't even be bothered to re-examine the policies or the manuals? Is that success? You try to write off our arguments like we're delusional or suggest that because we keep saying the same thing that you need to go, that somehow it's not true, but it's true. You, Charlie Beck, you have protected LAPD programs and officers who have directly harmed members of the community, and in some cases they've harmed members of your own department. You've intervened in Board of Rights hearings of domestic abusers and sexual predators. You're negligent when it comes to your officers, the public,
Thank you
who
for your
you decide
comments,
to protect, and who you overlook the experiences of.
Ma'am, thank you for your
We demand
comments.
an end to the cadet program, and
Please.
we demand that Charlie Beck be fired for negligence.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speakers, please, Jamie Garcia, Vanessa De Leon, and Hamid Khan.
So I just want to follow up and just in agreement that this cadet program be ended and Chief Beck be fired for negligence. But I just want to kind of also shed light on the culture of domestic violence and abuse that is seen through LAPD. So we see in the 2012 to 2014 report on bias policing complaints that in gender bias, 29 allegations of gender bias. In domestic violence, 269. So that's 269 officers. And sometimes I like to step back and think about this. So these are the people that are overseeing this cadet program, and these are people that our children are going to look up to, but 269 of these officers are actually committing domestic violence. And the sustained allegations are 86. So only 32% of these times have you even thought that this was actually a proven allegation. So sexual misconduct, 176. Unbecoming conduct, which can range from a variety of things, 6,637. So that's almost all of your officers, considering that there's less than 10,000 police officers with LAPD. So unbecoming conduct. And then we're going to go into bias policing complaints, but let's just have a preamble that there's 0 sustained. So this is the culture of LAPD. And so when we think about what's going on with the cadet program, we have to put it into context of what is actually going on with the police officers that are running this program, that they actually have and they continue this culture of sexual violence, domestic violence, child abuse, and you really should stop and think, Shane, you know, you're into approving funding, and think about, is this the funding that you really want to approve? Is this where you really want this cadet program to go? Because we are filing an official complaint saying that this is his neglect. You should have done something, Beck. You should have done something back in the day when you realized these things were happening. But you sit there with a smirk on your face thinking that sexual violence is actually something to smirk about. You should stop this program, complete an end to it right now, and find out and help other children who have actually been assaulted come forward. Because how many more children are there out there? And that should be your responsibility, Matt Johnson. How many more children are out there?
Thank you for your comments.
Are you similar to the church? How long is it going to take for more people to come forward?
This is your last warning.
Matt,
please have a seat.
Matt,
please have
relax,
a seat so we can get
relax,
to this.
because we got a long meeting to go, Matt. We got a long meeting to go.
Okay, order, please. Order, please.
Vanessa De Leon with the Youth Justice Coalition and Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. Law enforcement should not be overseeing youth development programs because that's not youth development programming. So like we've seen throughout history, just the harm that's being done to youth in this type of programming. Community, with over half of the budget that's going to LAPD and the more than $700 billion increase over the past 10 years of money that's been going to LAPD, that's taking away from what youth really need in our communities. The community has been asking for 5% of the money going to law enforcement to be redirected to youth development programming. We're only asking for 5%. We should be asking for 100% of that money. That programming would be able to go to fund a youth development department which would implement positive youth development programming, such as more youth centers in our communities, more youth jobs, and more peace builders in our community, which will help our young people, which our young people are calling for. These are the things that they asked for their community because they don't see it. There's an over-policing of young people, similarly into the LAPD cadets program. So really, we're funding law enforcement. We even fund more for animal services in the city of Los Angeles than we do on young people. And there's a really large problem when we're funding, animal services and law enforcement, which again are working punitively against our communities and criminalizing our communities. So we need to really redirect that money to young people in order to help them succeed and not lock them up and already have that mindset that they're bad people, because young people are not monsters. And I want you to see how much we're spending on young people by looking at this, how much we are spending on law enforcement. We want that money back.
Thank you for your comments.
Hamid Khan.
This is also what we're going to pass around, and I have in my hand, is a 43-year timeline of LAPD's sexual and domestic violence and child abuse. This goes back to 1962. This goes back to 1962. That you have acts where minors have been sodomized, raped, assaulted, lewd messages, intimate partner violence, when they go on patrol and they commit acts of sexual violence. When they are called in for 911, they commit acts of sexual assault. This is what the history entails. It is also posted on the Stop LAPD Spying website, stoplapdspying.org, and you will find it on the very first page. In 2009, in 1962, the Explorer program was started. In 2009, it was disbanded when Charlie Beck became the chief. And since then, the pattern has continued. The cadet program is rife with lewd messages, sexual assault, domestic violence. You heard my colleague, Jamie Garcia, already read out the numbers of violence that is going on. But what we are asking is, and directly asking Shane Goldsmith, as the president of Liberty Hill Foundation that funds and says change and not charity, well, this has not changed. Why do you keep on rubber stamping and signing on and funding and financing the assault and violence on our children? Other departments have shut it down. It's nothing new that we are asking. Department Signal Hill, right here next to Long Beach, it disbanded their Explorer program. Long Beach, California disbanded program in 1980s, then reformed in 1997, and has since been under investigation for number of instances of abuse. Right? Urbandale, California, up the 210 disbanded their program in 2014. Fox Lake, Illinois disbanded their program in 2015. Louisville, Kentucky suspended their program as of April 2017 as they investigate allegations of sexual abuse. So what we are asking is stop it. Stop it, because as community members, as parents, as people, we're asking you to stop this program. They are incapable of doing that. You have Youth Justice Coalition. You support these organizations. You have several other youth-oriented organizations. Give them the money. Have the money transferred over to them. But also take a position on that. Listen to what we are saying, because what we are asking is an independent investigation into this issue. Not an investigation which is run by internal division or by the police commission, because people have no trust in that thing. You have to call for a special prosecutor, because these are lies. These are lives. This is trauma. This is sexual assault. This is like these children are going to grow up. What are you going to tell them? That we rubber stamped and signed on to more sodomy, more assault, more lewd messages, more texting, more sexting? This is not on. This is unacceptable. So, and this person is responsible for that. In 2009, he was appointed the chief, and then the cadet program started, and we have the same history of the same thing going on. When did there's a saying that the fish rots from the head down. So you have a rotten head. And this has to stop, Shane Goldsmith. So take some leadership position in that.
Any other comments on 3E?
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve item 3E?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Order, please. Can we have order, please?
No, you cannot have order.
If we can't have...
No, you cannot have order.
Sir?
No, you cannot have order.
Sir? Please stop
No,
this.
you cannot have order.
Hey, yes. That's
Okay, you need to leave the room right now, sir.
No. No.
Sir, you need to leave the room.
I'm not leaving.
We all rise together. Power hit me from behind.
Should I have him removed, or should I?
To be complicit in sexual violence.
What are you people standing up for? What are you standing up for?
Everybody else in the room needs to have a seat.
No, they won't.
And you need to leave, sir.
I will not leave.
And the police are standing too. They would have to sit down first and foremost. They are the...
You will put me out, but I will not leave. The time for silence has ended.
That's
the time for polite politics has ended. The time for bullshit has ended.
Shane, this is how you want to. This is how you want to be.
We have nothing to lose but our
You work
change.
for the people. You work for the pigs.
We have nothing to lose but our change. We have nothing to lose but our change. We have nothing to lose.
Now need to clear the room.
We have nothing.
We need to clear the room.
We have nothing to lose but our change. We have nothing to lose.
We're asking you to clear the room at this time. We're asking you to clear the room.
Does it work?
Or the meeting will not continue. Please clear the room.
We have all departments, civilian personnel leave the room. All departments, civilian personnel leave the room.
So, if I would, we should put our hands up, because if not, they're going to say we assault them. Self-defense and in defense of others.
Complicity in sexual violence is what's happening. Akili and all of us rise up against that. Complicity in sexual violence, sexually violence to our...
Why are you smiling? Because he loves it. He's a piece of junk.
We come here every Tuesday, and they do the same thing. They are in place to protect this institution.
Fire chief back.
Rapists.
Fire chief back.
Fire chief back.
Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back. Fire chief back.
my notebook back. Because the notes for the opposition to the drone are on that tablet. So I want my notebook back. No, I threw it at him.
Fire Chief back!
Fine!
Fire Chief back!
Fire the commission!
Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission! Fire the commission!
Every Tuesday we come here. We make our voices known. If it were not for us, they would rubber stamp everything that these people want and move on. They would do it in 45 minutes and be gone.
Wicked.
So we are upholding the democratic process. We are the people of this city. It is incumbent upon us to be here, and it is equally as incumbent for us to challenge and confront them. They are here to protect at all costs that institution. We are here to protect at all costs the lives of ourselves and our families. And if given a choice, they will protect the institution. If given a choice, we have to protect ourselves. They have demonstrated that. They are not willing to. They are not even interested in raising the question. They are about to give almost $400,000 to a cadet program that failed. I mean, you heard, listen, Hamid spends time researching this, and you heard what they talked about, what has happened since 1962. But yet they're willing to trust these people again?
While the community needs youth development, while
Yes.
the community needs youth jobs, while the community needs bus passes, they want to give it to a program that we already know is failing. Them themselves know, but guess what? They just walk past by it just like they did right now.
And what's worse, they're going to come back and approve drones to a police force that's the most murderous in the country, that will weaponize it within a few months. They will be spying on us, and they will approve it. They will support it, and they will protect it.
Too much money goes to the police, depriving needy communities, needing people of real human need. And the brutalization and militarization of LAPD, killing our community, black, brown, red, poor white, poor people. That's what this whole LAPD program is about. They get all kinds of city money that we deserve. We're the taxpayer. But, well, how many times has killer, murdering police been fired or convicted? They're always set free. So they keep doing it over and over and over. And the rest of the police that don't do it, they keep their mouth shut. They're afraid of losing their job.
Which is why we do not trust them with $380,000. We don't trust them with a drone. We don't trust them at all. Because nobody, 2 weeks ago, we were in this room, and they found in policy the killing of a 14-year-old. How do you do that? Thank you for lifting up their name. How do you, well-intended, smart people, think, well, whatever that child did, he shouldn't have done it, and the police had to kill him? What society does that? What society kills its own children and then say the people who killed them are okay, they're in policy? What society does that? A white supremacist society. Thank you.
Trying to look away from the truth.
Yeah. And so if they'll approve that and this $380,000 in these drones, they will kill us continually. That's why we have to be here. That's why we have to disrupt. And if they can never meet again, so what? So what?
Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down.
They're not doing anything for us in the first place. This police department is focused on two things: control and suppression. And if you put weapons in their hands, they will use it to control and suppress us.
1974, advisor to the program, the Explorer program, Officer David Kalish begins to abuse a 14-year-old Explorer boy. The abuse lasts until 1979, is not unveiled until 2003, along with evidence of other victims. Jamie, 1976.
A LEEG complains to, and LEG is it was the Law Enforcement Explorer Girls Program, complains to LAPD supervisors that the camping trips were little more than orgies. An investigation finds that at least 6 cops had sex with at least 16 teenage explorers. Officer Michael Casados is suspended for 6 months when found guilty by police tribunal of engaging in sexual acts with a 17-year-old female scout.
Shame on you.
Sergeant Lee Schroyer is found guilty of raping a woman while on duty. Schroyer resigns from the LAPD to avoid an internal police board hearing. He is found guilty of rape and sent to jail for 18 months.
1985, a sergeant is investigated for raping a woman. His name is not disclosed, but he's removed from field duty following an allegation that he offered a woman a ride, then raped her in his patrol car.
1986, veteran officer and repeat offender Michael Casados, which I just mentioned, is arrested for sexually molesting a 15-year-old girl over a 5-year period. Casados resigns from the LAPD and due to a plea deal remains free without bail until his hearing in July and was guaranteed not to serve time.
1986, Officer Al Cunningham is arrested for suspicion of molesting 4 girls between the ages of 10 and 13 over a 4-year period. Charges include felony child molestation and rape.
1987, Officer Doyle John Craig is charged with 9 counts of molesting teenage boys, many of whom he met while on patrol. The charges are dismissed after the testimony of the victims was ruled inadmissible.
1989, Officer Stanley Tanabe demands to be let into the home of a 14-year-old girl claiming that he heard a scream for help. After the girl's parents let him in, Tanabe goes to the girl's bedroom and molests her under the pretense of conducting a search. The family files a complaint, but Tanabe returns to the house 4 weeks later when the girl's parents are gone. Tanabe is taken into custody, placed on administrative leave, and later sentenced to 2 years in jail.
1992, Officer Garner Beasley is charged with raping 4 women while on patrol. Beasley also shoots a woman in the leg while she tries to flee from him during an off-duty encounter. While being investigated, Beasley is assigned to desk duty, then sent home with pay. Following his arrest, he is suspended without pay.
1992, in May, Officer Victor Felix Ramos goes to his wife's place of work to beat and threaten her with his gun. Due to Ramos's clean record, the LAPD does not make counseling mandatory, but asks that Ramos hand in his gun for 1 month. After a month, the gun is returned to Ramos and Ramos is put back on patrol with no psychological evaluation. On August 12th, Officer Ramos uses his department-issued gun to kill his wife, her lover, and himself while his 3 children aged 3, 5, and 6 hid in the bedroom.
1994, Officer Marvin Jackson is arrested for sexually assaulting a 16-year-old Explorer youth. Jackson is knowingly HIV positive. Jackson pleads guilty and is sentenced to 15 months in jail. 52 months in jail. He is fired from the LAPD.
1996, Sergeant David Luis Navarro is placed on administrative hold in November for conducting searches of girls aged 16 to 18 and sexually groping them. 7 months later, he resigns. He spends 36 days in jail.
1997, criminal defense consultant Mike Mullally leaks information to a CBS reporter regarding confidential files into LAPD domestic violence. The files reveal that from 1990 to 1993, 79 officers were investigated for beating their intimate partners and family members. Out of 85 cases, 75 showed evidence of a crime. In one case, an officer struck his wife so hard her liver ruptured. In another case, an officer abused his wife and repeatedly raped her 14-year-old niece. Complaints includes 61 felony assaults, 35 terrorist threats, 28 assaults with a deadly weapon, 20 gun brandishing incidents, 13 child abuse complaints, and 6 rapes. No officers were arrested or prosecuted, and while 4 officers were fired and 19 were suspended, almost 1/3 of officers were eventually promoted. Following the leak, the Feminist Majority Foundation and its National Center for Police and Women and Policing successfully pushed for an investigation of LAPD practices involving police officers guilty of domestic abuse. In the resulting report, Inspector General Catherine Maynard examines 227 cases of domestic violence committed by officers from 1990 and 1997 and finds that many of the investigations lacked objectivity or were otherwise flawed and skewed. That's why we asked for an
independent investigation.
Go ahead, please.
Continuing, in 1997, Officer John M. Rosales is accused of sexual misconduct with a 17-year-old Explorer youth, again, and inappropriately touching 2 others, aged 14 and 16. Rosales is placed on administrative leave with pay. In the resulting investigation, Police Chief Bernard C. Parks reveals that there are 95 allegations against 8 officers with 3 female victims. Rosales is implicated with committing statutory rape against 1 youth and sexually harassing 2 others. 7 of the officers failed to provide adequate supervision and committed unidentified administrative breaches. In 1997, the 17-year-old former Explorer Scout abused by Rosales is awarded $1.4 million in a suit against the City of Los Angeles for failing to exercise proper supervision over Rosales and the Explorer Scout program. The LAPD notes that Rosales is
Attention. The board will not be coming back out at this moment. I need for everybody to clear the room. Please clear the room.
Within 6 weeks while on duty.
You are no longer, please clear the room or you will not be allowed back in when we reconvene. Please clear the room.
No. Can't speak.
In April, Officer Joseph Evans Robinson is relieved of duty after raiding.
Attention, I'm Lieutenant Caldera, a police officer for the City of Los Angeles. I hereby declare this an unlawful assembly. In the name of the people of the state of California, command all those assembled at 101st Police Commission Boardroom to immediately disperse, which means to break up this assembly. If you do not do so, you may be arrested, subject to other police action, or other police action may include the use of less lethal munitions, which could and cause significant risk of serious injury to those who remain. Section 409 of the PC Code prohibits remaining present at unlawful assemblies. If you remain in the area, which was just described, regardless of your purpose for remaining, you will be in violation of Section 409. The following routes of dispersal are available through the rear door, through the lobby to First Street. You have 15 minutes to disperse.
We got our whole 15 minutes. Y'all should keep reading. This is amazing. And the fact that you bring this up in public, the fact that we have to hear this through a third party is why we need an independent investigation. We got 15 minutes. We're up to 1997, are we?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Thank you to Tiffany's research. Go ahead.
In 2003, a lawsuit is brought by a former Explorer Scout charging the deputy chief, David Kalish, began sexually abusing him when he was 14 years old and continued for 4 years. A 5-month investigation of Kalish reveals similar accounts of sexual abuse from an additional 5 youth, all of whom were enrolled in the LAPD's Explorer program.
2005, Officer George Stan, an LAPD veteran who ran a San Fernando Valley Explorer program for a year, is arrested for multiple charges of sex acts and sending harmful material to an Explorer applicant. Stan's acquaintance with the applicant began when the boy was 12. The resulting investigation found that Stan molested 7 minors, 2 of whom were involved in the Explorer program. Stan retired from the LAPD following his arrest and was sentenced to 11 years, 4 months in jail. Speaking on behalf of the department, Lieutenant Paul Vernon noted that Stan's arrest would not alter LAPD's commitment to the Explorer program. These kinds of incidents can happen in any organization, in anything dedicated to children, youth sports, churches, synagogues. That's their argument.
2005, Officer Jeffrey Sandwell is arrested for the forcible rape of a 17-year-old girl in his neighborhood. Sandwell is part of the Neighborhood Watch program, whereby his home is proclaimed a safe haven. Sandwell is held for 5 days, and additional women came forward with claims of assault. Sandwell is released when the DA decides not to press charges. 2005, off-duty officer Ralph Cameron Lacken is arrested for covertly taking sexually suggestive pictures of girls as young as 4 years old as they walk around a local festival. 9 months later, Lacken retires from his job, where he was reviewing excessive excessive force cases at the LAPD. He takes a plea deal, allowing him to avoid charges of a sex crime. He is sentenced to probation and community service.
2005, in July, Officer Hector Vialta is arrested for forcibly raping a woman in his home while he's off duty. It is not clear if Vialta was ever charged.
In 2008, a video of LAPD's Juvenile Impact Program is made public. The JIP is described as an intervention boot camp style program for at-risk youth. While originally for youth aged 12 to 17, over time the age limit dropped to 9 to 15-year-olds, so we can intervene at an early age. In the video, no longer available on YouTube, children as young as 9 are made to roll through the mud as an officer shouts at them and sprays them with a hose.
2008, in March, Officer Russell McConno is arrested for solicitation of sex while on duty. The charges stemmed from McConno's encounter the previous October with a houseless woman who was 18 or 19. 2 months later, an 18-year-old reports that McConno sexually assaulted her while he was on duty. McConno was sentenced in 2011 to 8.5 years in jail for sexual assault and solicitation of sex.
2008, in December, Officer Eduardo Bermudez is arrested for attempting rape following a sanctioned LAPD Pacific Area holiday party and an unofficial after party. Bermudez is reportedly off duty when he attempts to rape a fellow officer. He's placed on paid home leave during the investigation.
In 2009, in December, the LAPD cut ties with the Explorer program, which is a Learning for Life subsidiary of the Boy Scouts of America. It transitions to a program run entirely by the LAPD, known today as the Cadet Program. The reason given is that LAPD's disagreement with the Boy Scout policies, which are discriminatory with regards to sexual orientation and religion.
In 2010, LAPD officers Luis Valenzuela and James Nichols are accused of forcing a woman to engage in sex almost a year prior. The claim is dropped when, according to the warrant, the woman who made the statement cannot be located. The investigation would be picked up again in a year, but would go nowhere until 2013 when the victim filed a lawsuit.
2011, in November, Detective Oris Pace, a supervisor with the Los Angeles Police Commission Investigation Division, is investigated following complaints from local massage parlor workers. The investigation reveals that over the course of a year while on duty, Pace forced 3 women to undress so he could grope them. Pace pleads no contest and resigns from the LAPD. He's sentenced to 6 months in jail.
In 2012, a video of LAPD officer Ismael Gonzalez and Alex Nava running a boot camp for young teens surfaces online. The video shows armed officers in uniform screaming at youth and taunting them on the playground. Most kids appear to be early teenagers, but at least one child appears to be at least 6 years old. As of June 2017, Officer Alejandro Nava is still listed on LAPD's website as a contact person for the LAPD's JIP.
In 2012, Officer Elmer Alex Peraza, a former Marine, is accused by his ex-wife of domestic abuse and assault with a firearm. Peraza and his ex-wife have been married for 8.5 years before their divorce. In the last 3 years of their marriage, Peraza's ex-wife reports that she was verbally abused, hit, choked, strangled, and beaten, and that her elderly mother and sister were also the targets of abuse.
2013, Officers Nichols and Valenzuela are relieved of their duties but remain employed as they are investigated for the sexual assaults of 4 women over 5 years. Many of the assaults occurred while the officers were on duty, armed and in uniform. Some took place inside the police field.
Okay, in 2013, Officer Miguel Angel Shifra-Pitra is found guilty of luring his neighbor's 2 children, aged 5 and 8, into his bedroom, where he has committed a lewd act on the younger girl and attempted a lewd act on her sister. Shifra-Pitra is sentenced to 3 years in jail and resigns from the LAPD.
2013, a 27-year-old woman is sent to hospital after officers David Shin and Jin Oh placed her in handcuffs, put her in the back of their vehicle, then drove her around while one officer sexually assaulted her as the other drove the car. The assault victim was awarded $3.5 million for damages, but the officers were never charged.
2014, Officer Daniel Hun Chun is arrested for battery of a young teenage relative who is left with welts and bruises on his shoulders and back after being hit by Chun repeatedly. Chun stated that the beating was due to misbehavior and poor grades. Chun pled guilty to battery. He's placed on leave with the LAPD and never serves any time in jail.
In 2014, LAPD detective of sexual assault crimes Dennis Durer is found dead in his car after committing suicide. 2 adult relatives of Durer's had recently accused him of sexual abuse that occurred when they were teenagers. In one case, the abuse was sustained for numerous years.
In In 2014, following an endorsement of Peraza by Chief Charlie Beck, LAPD's Internal Affairs cancels the Board of Rights termination hearing against him for the physical abuse of his ex-wife, her mother, and her sister. The LAPD instead promotes Peraza's ex-wife, who is also an LAPD officer, and gives Peraza a 5-day suspension.
2014, LAPD Detective Michael Bramble is arrested for a series of robberies, 2 rapes, and assault with a deadly weapon. One of the robberies involves a 16-year-old girl whom Brambles robbed of her school backpack at gunpoint. Brambles is sentenced to 102 years in jail.
In 2015, an October Cadet Youth Service officer, Montes de Ochoa, is investigated for sending lewd messages and photos to a 16-year-old recruit. De Ochoa is sent home with pay, then arrested 10 months later and charged with the distribution of harmful matter to a juvenile, destroying evidence and child annoyance, or abnormal sexual interest of a minor. It is not clear what discipline or sentencing he receives.
2015, the Officer of the Inspector General releases a review of the bias policing complaints made and investigated from 2012 to 2014. The data reveals that of 269 alleged domestic violence complaints, 86 were sustained. Compared to the 1997 investigation, the rate at which domestic violence is being reported against officers has more than doubled.
2017, LAPD Officer Clifford Proctor is charged with domestic violence and misdemeanor battery against 2 women in Orange County.
In 2017, in June, Officer Robert Kane is accused with statutory rape of a 15-year-old cadet stationed at the 77th Street Division. On July 20th, Kane is charged with sexual assault.
Thank you. So first of all, I just want to acknowledge Tiffany Guerra for her research on
All
behalf
right.
of the Stop LAPD Coalition, Ellie Can. So when we 2 weeks ago came out with this thing, there's a person from the Police Protective League, from the police union as well. Both the Police Protective League and the LAPD issued a statement, making a mockery of what we are saying, and saying to the extent, and I'm just paraphrasing, that those who live in these glass houses shouldn't be throwing stones. Well, whose glass house are we talking about? I mean, this is as rotten as it gets. This is not, as we always say, what happened with Robert Kane is not a moment in time, but a continuation of history. And this one doesn't even include when that off-duty officer who lives in Orange County ripped out a whole and pistol whipped these young people who were coming home from their school. That just happened 4 or 5 months ago. So this is what we are talking about when we say that the whole damn system is guilty as hell. This is not one act. This is not 2 acts. This is not just something that happens maybe. This is going on for the last 43 years. So nobody's saying here that don't support the youth. But this department is not capable. It's a violent department. They cannot have, we have youth right here who are speaking about it. Let the youth run those programs.
Yes.
That's where the money should be going. We live in a city that is less than, so I'm not going to speak on your behalf, Vanessa. Would you like to share some of this thing? What is going on and how much money criminal justice is going?
Yeah, so over the past 10 years, the LAPD budget has increased by over, I believe it's $700 billion, and it's only expected to continue increasing. And more than half of the budget allocated for the city, it's about 53%, is going towards law enforcement, going, towards the over-criminalizing of our communities when, young people across Los Angeles are calling for that money to come back to where it rightfully deserves to go, which is to our communities, to young people, to all people, to fund things like housing, like medical care, like youth centers, spaces that are open and safe for us to go, not run by law enforcement.
All of you in this room, look to be inspected one day. We are going to read about Hamid shortly. We are going to hear about whisper campaigns about some of us. So when you challenge corruption, you become a target. So when the time comes, and it will, because they don't know anything else. They don't understand anything else.
Only violence.
Control and suppression. They will figure out a way to control and suppress us. Our being here every Tuesday makes it a little difficult, because there's some white folks in the room too, which we appreciate y'all being there, quite frankly. But we know that
I am going to read shortly about our meeting. There's something there, and if it ain't, we'll make something.
Critical thinking.
I'm going to read about you. Tiffany, how dare you do this research? How dare you spend your time compiling all this information? How dare you do that? How dare you raise these points? How dare you point a finger at the corruption and call for the firing of Beck? How dare you do that? We need law and order in LA. We are run over with gangs. That's why 53% of our budget goes to the police. Because this city is full of gangs on every corner, every time you look around. And somebody has to control them gangs. Because good, decent people on the north and in the west need to be protected. And so their job is to make sure, and they get whatever they want, to make sure that gang members, you ever heard Beck's report? He talks about gang violence, he talks about he never substantiates it, he just references it. He talks about it, but he never supports it. It's not a resource, it's a reference. But if you can use it and scare people, then you can get more money. Then you can weaponize drones. Then you can get almost $400,000 for a failed cadet program. Because they are protecting us against the gangs. And who are these gangs, by the way?
Our relatives.
Yes.
Our
they're-
community.
They're black youth, they're brown youth,
They
they're
are
youth,
us, they're
period.
all of us.
But they are protecting us against the gangs. And when we come back and they make the argument for the drone, and you hear Beck's report, you will see how they are protecting us and making sure that the city is safe. Protect and serve. You should put under that control and suppress.
You have less than 1 minute to clear the room.
Relatives, I want to acknowledge our power, and that when we transition in our power, in our safety, on our terms, that we do that collectively. We held this space in our power. The state is very afraid of truth, and we walk in truth. So always stay that walk in truth. Thank you for sharing truths that need to be spoken. Thank you for lifting up the names of so many folks. I acknowledge those folks. That was a lot of violence historically that was just read. Take care of our bodies, take care of ourselves. That sexual violence permeates all our families and communities. The problem is they have the badge to enforce it and use guns in that too. So we do need to shut down the cadet program. We do need to shut this place down. Leave those intentions here, leave those vibes here, that this may come down and we may lift up life. Thank you all so much for our president. May we walk in our power and we will come back.
It's time to clear the room, please.
In our power, without violence, because they are violent, and we have to respond to violence in the ways that we know how to. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for rising up.
Thank you so much for your courage and always being here on Tuesday.
They ain't your friend.
Go ahead. No, wait till
They are
he's
not
out.
your
Wait till he's
friend.
out. Wait till he's out.
We'll be back.
We'll
be back. We'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be back.
The reason racist empire is
There's
collapsing.
a saying, when a fool
It's
is a
because
wise
you do not
man,
have the
you
moral.
can't tell which. So don't engage.
now they went back in, right? They put them in the lobby and they're sitting outside. I'm not sure.
How long, can I get a heads up on how long you think it's going to be? Yeah, after.
Oh, they'll let them all back in. They didn't leave, so that's good.
Okay.
They don't have to go back through screening.
You know what? I think you should take my job. I think you got a future.
Fire Charlie back! Fire Charlie back! Fire Charlie back!
Human beings know when they're Shane, if you need support, ask for it. We know that the wicked are at your heels. Get up, stand up for your rights. Righteousness. What happens at the end?
We used to be Oregon, but we got in a minute or so.
Nice, you got your moral strength.
Okay, Madam Secretary, let's reconvene the meeting. Madam Secretary, we're going to reconvene the meeting.
Thank you, sir. We did get a motion on 3E, so you have items 3C, A, C, and D. Which one would you like to?
Okay, let's call item 3A, please.
Item number 3A, Department's verbal presentation, PowerPoint, and discussion relative to a proposal for a pilot program for limited tactical deployment of an unmanned aerial system.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. T-Fang, Mr. Bustamante, and Chief Beck. Thank you for the opportunity to take some time to present on this topic. The Department is seeking to commence a responsible and limited one-year pilot program to launch the tactical use of a small unmanned aerial system, also known as SUAS. As the UAS has evolved, the advantages to having it available for tactical tool use has come into sharper focus over the years for public safety, for the safety of officers, and also for the de-escalation of force. Currently, approximately 34 agencies in California are utilizing some form of UAS, and nationwide, approximately 347. With the increasing responsibilities and challenges experienced by local law enforcement, not only in high-profile and high-intensity tactical situations, but also with regard to homeland security-related threats, the duty and responsibility to be nimble and able to gain real-time situational awareness in exigent circumstances has become necessary. A UAS can be instrumental in checking large areas quickly where time may not be on our side, such as a threat to the rail system, a challenging venue, or a difficult and large terrain piece. How would we use it? It would be used by members of the Special Weapons and Tactics Team, our SWAT team, assigned to Metropolitan
Can we
Division.
please have order?
And they would be trained in its use and also certified by the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA.
Ma'am,
The UAS
disrupting the presentation.
The UAS would be deployed in limited situations governed by strict criteria, where the preservation of life in a legal and constitutional manner would define its purpose. With respect for civil liberties, protection of privacy, and compliance with First and Fourth Amendment rights, a strict case-by-case approval process would be instituted. The UAS will not be used for non-exigent surveillance. Let's discuss now the criteria for utilization of a SUAS. There would be the following circumstances: high-risk tactical operations and incidents, hazardous materials and potential exposure incidents to hazardous materials, detection of explosive devices, barricaded armed suspect response, and hostage rescue. While not a replacement for an air support system, it can allow officers to obtain an elevated view or vantage point to assess the dangers of a situation in almost any terrain, in almost any weather condition, so they can overcome obstructions also, such as trees, covered structures, staircases, and power lines, without endangering human life by either the introduction of an armed officer or canine.
No, ma'am, you've interrupted the meeting now several times. Please, if you have a comment, submit a card. If you disrupt the meeting again, I'm going to ask you to leave. Thank you.
So as I was stating, the UAS would prevent us having to introduce an armed officer or a canine into a situation where maybe the mere introduction of such would help to escalate an incident or make it even more increasingly volatile. So we're looking at potential savings in many areas: injury reduction, life savings, time savings by its deployment, and also and even monetary savings by the reduced use of personnel and also expenditure of munitions, etc. How would this occur? As a force de-escalator, deployment of a UAS would allow an option and flexibility we do not have at this time and we cannot utilize at this time, to avoid putting an armed officer in harm's way in a situation to evaluate or put eyes on any aspect of a high-risk tactical incident in real time. And I think the importance to underscore here is the real-time aspect. This ability could very well mitigate a highly volatile situation from turning more dangerous and violent. The ability and value in providing real-time visual awareness without jeopardizing a human life is incalculable. If we can scan and examine larger areas more quickly, we have the ability to deploy better, more smartly, more safely, while making better use of finite resources, checking on hazards, and, very importantly, in active shooter-type incidents, locating and aiding victims much more quickly. The type of UAS we're considering here today is approximately 11.5 inches by 7.5 inches, and shortly I'll show you a picture of that in the PowerPoint slides. They'll be limited, but you'll be able to take a look. They will not be weaponized or modified for any weapons-related applications associated with its use, and I want to stress that. Very importantly, next is taking a look at what would the checks and balances look like, as well as an approval system for any deployment of a UAS. First, clear guidelines would be written and established. Second, the deployment of the UAS would have to be approved on a case-by-case basis by the commanding officer of Counterterrorism Special Operations Bureau, with notification to the director of the Office of Special Operations at the assistant chief level. Then, written documentation of each use would be done by the officer in charge of the Special Weapons and Tactics Team, where date, time, duration, and location of deployment and what the results of that deployment were would be documented and kept for subsequent review by the Police Commission at regular intervals to be determined by the Commission in a presentation that would be made by the Assistant Chief of the Office of Special Operations. Very important and critical here for me to underscore this next point. The device shall not be used to circumvent the Fourth Amendment in situations regarding a search warrant where a judge must review and sign. In those situations, a search warrant will be obtained in full compliance with the law. Throughout the pilot process, continual research and review of best practices will also take place. We will be seeking and inviting community input and discussion. Meetings will take place in all 4 LAPD geographic bureaus, South, West, Central, and the Valley. And the dates will be announced coming up on lapdonline.org. And that will be in the coming days. Also, a footnote before I show you the few PowerPoint slides is the 2 UAS devices that were obtained from Seattle in 2013 have been destroyed and are no longer operational by any means. Now I'd just like to call your attention to a few visual aids here as well. This next slide here will show you the SUAS as I described. The dimensions illustrated 11.5 by approximately 7.5, just to give you an idea of the types of devices that we're looking at. We have not looked at any particular models. No purchases have been made, nothing of that kind. We're just taking a look at what would work best in tactical situations and be least obtrusive. A quick review of the advantages of a UAS system in tactical situations. Again, the real-time imagery provided to officers to decrease their vulnerability in high-risk deployments. Also, a manned aircraft may not be feasible, especially if we're talking about a situation where there may be an explosive device on the ground and a blast radius could jeopardize the pilot and the tactical flight officer. Also, it has the ability, and we'll see this in a brief video momentarily, to land in the immediate vicinity of a specific threat and give real-time video and allow an officer to see exactly what a potential threat is, also not to allow us to overreact to something that may not be there, or also, as I stated earlier, not introducing an armed officer or canine in a situation that could escalate the anxiety level. Again, the key here is reducing the risk of human exposure. The photograph here, I want to take you back in time to June 7th of 2013. This actually happened outside of the city. This was in the city of Santa Monica Community College, where we had an individual who had murdered a family member, then went out into the city of Santa Monica and ended up at the community college in the library area. Many law enforcement agencies were asked to respond to that incident, and several people did lose their lives as a result. One of the debriefing points that came up when the agencies got together was how beneficial it may have been to have a small unmanned aerial system introduced to this situation as they were trying to scan for possible victims in, for example, the library that is depicted here.
Sir, now you've interrupted this meeting also several times. Can you please hold your comments until public comment and submit a card?
Recently, we have acquired responsibilities within the Metro Rail system. And here's another great example of the ability of sending a SUAS into the rail system if we have to do a quick scan of the rails, the mezzanine, or any particular area. If we receive a radio call, for example, of a suspicious package, some threat to the safety of the patrons of the rail system. Parker Perch. In this situation, I have a brief video to show you. And we're talking about a situation that many times our SWAT members encounter where someone is secreted in a container, for example, here in a dumpster, and this has happened many times to our Special Weapons and Tactics team, responding either to a barricade or an armed suspect situation. The ability to have SUAS take a peek into something like a dumpster without bringing up armored vehicles, officers in TAC gear, and a canine to look into such a mechanism or a container is something that could help with a de-escalation by seeing things before we actually have to approach. For example, in August, and as you see this video, in August of 2014, we had Officer Nelson Fong, who was shot during a protracted incident of a foot pursuit with armed suspects, one who secreted himself in a dumpster very similar to this, causing critical injury to Officer Fong. So we have situations such as in this video where we could mitigate exposure of officers or members of the public. Current usage of UAS by department type, just a quick chart here for you. As I stated earlier, looking at California and the breakdown. This is as of April 2017, and also nationwide as well. This concludes my presentation. I thank you for your time and attention, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. So at this time, you're not asking us to actually approve anything. We're going to start a public process where we will get public input in each of the 4 geographic bureaus.
That's correct, yes.
Can you just talk a little bit about that presentation, the collection of opinion at that, and how that will be reported back to us?
Yes, absolutely. So we will make sure that we disseminate the information on the 4 meetings. Again, we wanted to make sure that no aspect of the city was unaddressed, so we will be in each of the 4 bureaus. We're probably looking at about 90 minutes to 2 hours. We will have subject matter experts available, command staff available as well, to address questions, concerns, memorialize those questions and concerns, and take them back for a discussion, and also back here to the commission as we look toward phase 2 of our request to you, which is looking at some guidelines, etc. We have also reached out to the ACLU just due to some logistics. We haven't connected yet, but we are planning to have that meeting as soon as possible to get opinions, etc. Back in 2014, that process was begun by then Deputy Chief Michael Downing with Mr. Peter Biebring and others to not only memorialize the concerns, but look at them with regard to guidelines as well.
Can you walk through the next steps after that, so we can have a sense of
yes
of timing?
Absolutely. So we will bring back the concerns of the community to the commission. We will also bring a draft of guidelines for the limited deployment of a UAS device. We will look toward the commission for their guidance and hopefully for their support in a limited 1-year pilot program. What I think is very important is that each and every single deployment of that UAS must be approved. And that will be in written documentation, which will be reviewed by the commission. So you can see the parameters of use, the duration of use, are we clear with the circumstances, and are they in compliance with the guidelines that we are presenting in that draft form.
Thank you.
I have three questions.
Yes, Mr. Sobroff.
The first one, it sounds like...
Your mic.
Oh, sorry. Sounds like the events that will occur that would create the need for this are limited, controlled, and rare. My concern is these things unfold very quickly, and my concern is in order to get permission, how long will that take?
No, I understand your concerns.
You're getting permission to protect the public, permission to protect the officers. For all the limited reasons that you're going to be using this,
yes.
I'm concerned it's like it's going to take too long.
Well, as part of the process, when a SWAT team is deployed, immediate notification is made to Chief Beck, to myself, to the commanding officer of Counterterrorism Special Operations Bureau. So that all happens simultaneously. So we'll already be in that communication link to see what else may be needed. SUAS may not be needed at all, but we know immediately as the SWAT team is rolling, we are all notified concurrently, so we would already be aware and have a heightened awareness if there would be the need for such a deployment. But I understand your concern.
Okay. Number two is, I believe that other cities who have deployed these devices have not had limited policies, have not had controlled policies, have gone way beyond what we're going to be doing. And I don't see this paralleling anything like the programs that had been approved in other cities. And I wondered if you took what you took into consideration to create this, which I consider a very limited, controlled circumstance, versus what these other cities have done that have cast this negative view on this type of
Yes, Mr. Sobroff. We looked at IACP guidelines, Department of Justice guidelines. We reviewed the IG's report for the county sheriffs. We also took a look at other policies in other jurisdictions. We looked at a number of policy documents as well. And I think one of the things that was very important for us to have for not only the command and control feature, but for documenting and memorializing each deployment is the written documented log, where you'll have details of the deployment and we are held accountable to each deployment. It's not just on a supervisor's log. We're creating an actual document that is solely the point of capture for all of the information. So that is presented to the commission, and you will be able to take a look, you'll be able to ask questions, and you'll be able to see if we are being true to our word to those guidelines. But I think it was very important that we add that documentation log piece here so that it is kept and maintained in a fashion that anybody can take a look at it from the commission, and you could ask questions if, let's say, you were not privy to details of that particular deployment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So will there be a policy that comes to the commission
Yes.
like we did with body cameras?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
How, besides the ACLU, how else will you, how do you plan to get more public input from community and other stakeholders?
We will be starting with the ACLU, and we know there are other legal entities that can help us get a wider vision and a wider scope of what their concerns may be. Again, I think it was very important to emphasize here the non-exigent surveillance piece, which I know is clearly a concern, privacy concerns, Fourth Amendment concerns, particularly where there could be the belief that it would be utilization of a different type of tactical tool to get around the law. And I just wanted to emphasize that because even with barricaded suspect situations, Fisher versus San Jose, for example, we take a look at the importance of that search warrant piece where needed. So I think we'll be looking at a wide gamut of voices because those voices are extremely important to a very important conversation, but also very important that we look at the community safety aspect of it as well as our officers.
Order, please. Order, please. Thank you.
And then in your report when you come back, who and how will this pilot program be evaluated to make sure, we think the same, to make sure that it's everything you're telling us right now is being followed?
we could come to a subcommittee of the commission. Again, that would be up to the commissioners to determine the comfort level with how we report back to you. We will be fully prepared. I will be fully prepared to come back, or Deputy Chief Horace Frank, the commanding officer of Counterterrorism and Special Operations Bureau. So at whatever interval you deem appropriate to report back to you.
And this will obviously all be addressed in the policy that comes before us to do the pilot program, but the policy will be for the pilot program, and at the end of the pilot program, there would have to be a new vote by the commission at that time if the department was to move forward with something more permanent.
Yeah, and that's why that documentation piece is so important. You can collectively see what we've done over that year period.
Any other comments or questions before we go to public comment? Okay, let's go to the comment on this item, please.
Thank you, sir. We have 23 public comment cards. The first 4 comment cards: Kai Utsumi, Audrey George, Robert Sucher, and Hamed Khan.
I don't see Mr. Utsumi here.
Mr. Utsumi, I believe he's not present. Audrey George.
I am Akili. 3 years ago, Chief Beck said, "I will not sacrifice public support for a piece of police equipment." Well, now we see that was meaningless rhetoric.
Is that better? I'm sorry. There's still no support, Chief Beck. We distrust the LAPD. We believe that if they get the drones, it will be just like the SWAT teams that were supposed to only be deployed in excessive, with, like hostage situations, etc., and ended up being deployed unnecessarily and aggressively to execute search warrants in low-level drug investigations. How can we believe there'd be any transparency? We've thought that we knew the drones were grounded, but I would have been breathing a lot easier if I'd have known they were actually destroyed, and that was news to me today. The only way is to do what Seattle did, which apparently we did too, but why, having done so, would you buy a new drone? Would you even consider buying a new drone? Once we buy a new drone, the issue will resurface again and again in new iterations, expanding the use parameters. I wanted to just bring your attention to the fact that the Commission, over the Sheriff's Department, the Civilian Oversight Commission, expressed the desire to have the Sheriff's Department cease and desist using drones, and yet last week they used them again, where there was a standoff situation in East LA. So clearly, what the commissions say do not rule with the Sheriff's Department. Commissioners, I want you to consider whether what you say would be effective at all when it comes to the LAPD use of drones. And now we hear that Mr. Sobroff is saying it's really a done deal, is what he said a few minutes ago.
Okay, thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Robert Sucher, Hamed Khan, Jamie Garcia.
So the lies have started. November 21, 2014, ACLU says no to LAPD drones. And the print says for the second time this year, and this is through LA Times, the ACLU of Southern California has learned in newsprint that according to LAPD Chief Charlie Beck, we are collaborating with the LAPD to draft drones policy. As noted in a correction published by the Times on Wednesday, this is not true. So you're lying. You're just lying right there in front of our faces. And you start with a lie. The other lie you start off with is putting it in the SWAT team and giving us this whole nice rosy picture of the SWAT itself. So what has happened with SWAT since 1968 or whenever SWAT was started? 80% of SWAT is being used for low-level drug offenses. Kids are dying because of smoke bombs and all that. And you are telling us that SWAT's going to be using that. To the body right here directly, this is not a pilot program. The program started in May of 2014.
Okay,
the program.
Stop the clock for a second.
Can you guys?
Sir, I saw you just threaten that man in the audience. Do not do that again. Do not stand up. Do not point in someone else's face in the audience. I will ask you to leave if I see you do that again.
Can you stop sending police agents in here, please?
Do not threaten other members of the public, or you will be asked to leave.
What is this, like the third time you accused somebody of
Excuse me, ma'am. Let's restart the clock, please.
So now what we are facing right now, that by no means this is a pilot program. This program started in May of 2014. And the reason why it was because we got the reject from Seattle Police Department. You have your own previous commissioner, Robert Saltzman, when we filed for our public records, came out very clearly in his emails to the police commission that I've spoken to the California Science Museum, give these drones away because the people don't want them. The Sheriff's Department's Civilian Oversight Commission ruled clearly, majority, even after the most restrictive policy that there can be anywhere in the country, even after the most restrictive policy, they rejected the use of drones, saying that the drones should be permanently grounded. So we got to stop, because the Sheriff's Department Civilian Oversight knows what mission creep means. We've given you all these documents. We've shown you how the state of North Dakota, exactly this is the conversation that began 5 years ago, but a year and a half ago, they passed this legislation to allow police drones to be equipped with non-lethal weapons. The state of Connecticut right now is having conversations the same way of equipping drones with lethal weapons. So this pilot program needs to be, this can't be starting even. It has to be started right now. Follow the lead of the Sheriff's Oversight Commission and just say
Thank
no
you for your
and
comments,
demand
Mr. Khan.
that there's not going to be any drones in LA.
Thank you. The next three speakers, Jamie Garcia, Martha Camacho Rodriguez, and Akili.
So I'm here to repeat the call for no drones. We don't need more added to our Air Force in the sky. We have helicopters. People are being shot from helicopters. We don't need drones added to this. And I just wanted to reiterate again the lie about the ACLU working with you in regards to developing a policy. I don't know what may be happening right now in regards to the ACLU trying to come in and develop policy in regards to drones or surveillance equipment. But I want to say that they weren't doing it at that time. And just because someone from Liberty Hill sits up here, someone from another nonprofit sits up here, doesn't mean that that's a voice of the community either. We had 3,000 signatures just based on our own, and we're not a nonprofit, our own community-based organization that went out there on our own with teams of 5, maybe 10 people helping us. We were able to collect 3,000 signatures of the community being completely against the use of drones. Now, this idea that you're going to only use it during hostage and barricade situations is asinine, because we don't believe you. We know that already that there's a move throughout the nation to arm these drones. We know how they were used in North Dakota. We know that they're arming them there with non-lethal weapons. So, and then, you know, how are we going to trust a commission? How are we going to trust a police department that has an obvious history of lies and abuse? I mean, we just got kicked out because we were exposing the truth about the cadet program, and you didn't want to hear that. You're the most murderous law enforcement agency in the nation. You're sabotaging digital in-car video systems. And you're talking about logs and keeping logs on this and how you're going to, you know, ask for this approval for the drone use. But you couldn't even go back and investigate why officers were breaking off antennas of digital in-car video systems, and they were supposed to be keeping logs. So your logs mean shit. They don't mean that you're actually going to do something. So we don't need more militarization. We don't need drones, and we're going to fight this. We're going to fight it to the very end. These drones will be destroyed and they'll be grounded, or you won't even purchase them. So just drop the idea. It's not going to happen.
I am Akili as well. belt buckles and drones. I cannot use any of these tools. I am a school teacher in Compton, and none of these things can help any of our students. We need pencils, papers, books. We need student centers where students are safe. I am appalled. I am disgusted that as officers and people of the community that you would hear all of these assaults against our kids, and that none of you would be so even reported to Child Protective Services as an everyday person would be. How can you not incriminate people who continue to abuse these kids, continue to abuse our communities of color, and then not ask us what is good for us? I can teach people their rights, but you need to follow the law. What has been recognized as pen-to-paper policy. Transparency is a two-way street. Our communities of colors have been greatly harmed and damaged because what you say is not what you do.
Okay, followed by Jed Perriott and Mariela Saba.
McKeely. So amid the housing and homeless crisis and poverty crisis that we're facing right now, we're talking about spending more money on more militarized equipment for the most militarized police force in the nation. What a shame. What a disgrace. And you know, this suggestion that you're only going to use drones for search and rescue for hostage situations is absurd, when history clearly shows that military equipment acquired by law enforcement is almost exclusively used to occupy and oppress low-income communities of color in South LA, East LA, and Skid Row. You know, you're not out there looking for a missing person. You're going to be out there in Jordan Downs tracking and spying on a teenager who's dealing drugs because he's trying to survive in the economic system that oppresses him. That's what you're doing. And what about the instances of a drone that falls from the sky and hits a child? You know, this happens in the Middle East, where we're waging wars, endless wars, using drones to murder people, including airstrikes that go wrong where, oops, we're trying to hit someone, an ISIS member, and we end up bombing a wedding and killing hundreds of civilians. Or how about in the 80s when the Olympics gave you guys tanks for your SWAT teams, you decided to start ramming down walls of suspected crack houses, when in one instance, a suspected crack house ended up being full of women and children eating ice cream. No drugs found. So, we don't need drones. We need housing and healthcare and education, after-school programs, economic opportunity. We don't need more militarized equipment. We need less of it. We need to divest from law enforcement and reinvest in the community.
Hello, Los Angeles. I direct myself to our communities and present in the wars that we find ourselves in. And facing the disgusting complicity, Shane, I want to address you as someone who shared office space with me at Liberty Hill Foundation. I ended my time there, the program that I do with youth, right before you started this. I saw you nodding your head when in your presentation there was language about legality, and I saw that complicity. As long as it's in law, as long as it's legal, then it's okay to kill black and brown bodies. I identify as a brown queer mujer in front of a white queer mujer who is supposed to be in a position to fight for black and brown people. You're supposed to vote no, of course, you're supposed to vote no. In the chains you find yourself in, complicit in, Shane, because you are holding chains. Chains have two ends, and you're on one side of them, and you're chaining black and brown people, selling out black and brown people, white people in poverty. You're selling out your peoples too. You're no longer a white mujer in poverty. You're now in that position, Shane, selling out and killing our people. Shame, shame. You have to vote no. The Sheriff Oversight Commission that people voted for and worked hard, and there's movement behind that, voted no because there's people power making that happen. People have to defend their lives. We are all Achille. We raise up our knowledge, and sometimes our rage needs to come out, of course. We have rage.
We have depression in our streets. Our people are dying from how ill these fucked up systems are on our bodies, rooted in sexual violence. These systems are rooted in sexual violence and overpowering land and people. They are disgusting. Adding drones and calling them small, hell fucking no.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Thank you. The next three speakers, Lupita Carballo, Fal Sock, and Davon Williams.
Shame on you, Shane. Any threats that they're making Shane, make them public. They're threatening you.
The state is a threat as a whole.
Be there with you if you make it public.
Guilty as hell.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Lupita, and I'm here on behalf that we do not need drones. It seems like you guys have a lot of money to be wasting, and you guys are using them on toys? Let me tell you what we need. I am a youth from the community, and what we need are youth programs that are helpful. We need interventional workers, because I'm not going to go up to you and tell you, hey, I got a problem at my house. I'm going to go up to you and tell you, come on, take a walk with me. I need something. Come talk, because I want to talk to somebody. But you, I won't. What we need is youth jobs. I had an opportunity at the age of 15 to have a job because I look for it. But what about the other youth that don't look for it the way I look for it? We need youth jobs. That's what we need. Intervention workers, youth centers, bus passes. You guys, how many times have I gave out a fake name because I'm not going to get that ticket? Because I don't have to pay for my bus pass. That's what we need. You guys want to help the community? You guys can help the community by giving us 5% from your guys' budget to us, to the community. That's how you guys will help us. You guys want to know? Take my advice, because that's my opinion.
Hello, my name is Davon, also a member of the Youth Justice Coalition and a member of Stop LAPD Spying. I am also here to say no to drones and reinvest that money, as said earlier, into things we need in our community. The drones already have an issue of safety concerns. They have crashed into different places, and we need to reinvest in our community. Thank you.
Paul Soak, also with the Youth Justice Coalition. A lot's been said, and I don't think I really have to say anything different. I think we all agree, right? We all agree. No drones. So a simple question I would like to pose is, pretty much here is a cross-section of the community that the LAPD protects, and everybody's saying no drones. We don't have anybody here and saying, hey, if I had a drone, watch my house, survive me. Nobody's here saying that, right? I don't see anybody, not one hand. So everybody's saying no. So just protect the community, listen to the community. And I appreciate that you guys are here hearing us, but we ask that you would listen to us. Hearing and listening are two separate things. And so with that, I just want to leave you with one last point. If you start deploying drones, what do you think the community is going to start to think? And how would they react to the LAPD when the LAPD starts asking, can you help us? Can you give us some information about this thing happening over here? They're going to say, go watch your drone. All right? So how are you going to get, that's what it's going to create. It's going to create this distrust. And Beck, you're familiar with that, with SB 54, because it creates that distrust. This is just another form of it in a different way. Thank you.
Thank you. The next three speakers, Karen Hilfman.
Hey, order, please. Hey, order, please. Thank you.
The next three speakers, please. Karen Hilfman, Melanie Ochoa, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce this name. Tawhida Shakur. Ms. Hilfman?
I too am Akili. The community that you purport to keep safe doesn't want the drones, and that's clear. We fear the increased militarization. We reject the misplaced militarized priorities for Los Angeles. Last night, there was an LA Sheriff's Department Oversight Commission town hall meeting, and the commissioner who chaired it, the rabbi on the commission, said, and this was on the Facebook page this morning, that there were incredibly unified voices of the citizens who were at that meeting, and one of the topics was drones. And she said that it's rare to hear any group of people, much less a large public assembly like that, so aligned in their calls. And already we can see here today that Mr. Soboroff was already feeling that the guidelines were too restrictive and too limited for what was being proposed for the pilot program. So it's an indication that this program is just really, really ripe for mission creep. And again, I reject, along with members of the community who have talked about what they really do need the money spent on, reject the drones.
Please go ahead.
I'm Melanie Ochoa with the ACLU of Southern California. First, I want to restate that the ACLU did not work in 2014 to assist LAPD in developing a drone policy. And second, while we appreciate outreach to get our input on the proposed drone program, we want to be clear that our views should not be prioritized over the rest of the community, and we will express our views during the public process. Drones represent a significant threat to privacy, one that is very difficult to contain once drones are deployed for any use whatsoever. They should only be approved after a robust public discussion and weighing the public's concerns against any proven benefit to public safety. This requires more than a rubber stamp. The adoption of a drone program by LAPD, no matter how limited, must not be presumed with public comment limited to how this program should be implemented. The community's views should be a determinative factor in all phases of this decision-making process, including whether to move forward at all. It is also crucial that the Commission does not require only those opposed to drone use to justify their concerns, while those in support rely on hypothetical and unsubstantiated public safety benefits. To the extent there is a public safety benefit that may actually be achieved through the use of drones in the way LAPD proposes, this benefit must be substantiated, not just inferred from the fact that a drone deployment is possible. Further, more must be required to justify the acquisition of invasive surveillance technology than the belief that it can be useful. If that is all that it takes to overcome the reasonable concerns of the public, then any proposed limitations on the technology, such as the proposed prohibition on weaponization, can ultimately be overridden if it is asserted that it would provide a tactical advantage. The restrictions and prohibitions are not meaningful under this standard. As the Civilian Oversight Commission thoughtfully observed when they have refused to vote in favor of a post hoc authorization of the sheriff's drones, Los Angeles should not serve as a testing ground to discover the consequences of adopting a police drone in a major dense city, particularly where there is significant public opposition. A pilot program should not be held to a lower standard, and this commission must meaningfully consider the evidence and the public's views before voting.
Thank you.
Tawhida Shakur, followed by Vanessa De Leon and Adam Smith.
Are those the last three speakers?
No, sir, we have about 7 more.
I'm overtaken by a lot of emotions. I'm angry and sad, but this is nothing new. I don't know. I'm speaking to y'all as someone that that's growing up in South Central. That is obviously black, so we know what that means. It's really hard for me right now because I know I know that y'all could do the right thing, but I know at the end of the day you're not going to choose to do the right thing. It's really sad for me that every time a cop car passes by me, I hope that they don't shoot me. It's really sad for me when my sister told me she was pregnant with my nephew, that the first thing I thought about is all the systems I would have to protect him from. I couldn't bask in joy because I know I know that this, system we live in would rather see a bullet hole graze my nephew rather than invest 5%, simple 5%, in helping keeping him alive and people that look like me alive. These drones are sickening. It doesn't make sense that there's so much distrust between the community and police. If you're community members, then you would choose alternatives that would actually help the community. I shouldn't be in constant fear all the time for simply doing nothing. I know this means nothing to you, and I know I'm not reaching out to hearts, because if you had a heart, you wouldn't consider these things to begin with. But I just want you to know that I will keep fighting for my family and my community until the day that I die. Y'all sicken me. Go to hell. Go to hell. Go to hell.
I'm here speaking on behalf of myself, my family, my community, that the pilot program for drones not take place, not happen, because it's more money going to law enforcement, again, that can be spent elsewhere in our community. Currently, we spend less than 8% on libraries, parks, housing, and other social services that community needs. And again, we're spending more than half of our budget towards law enforcement, and this is going to only add additional numbers. And that's money that's coming from our city's budget. That's not including all of the money that we get from federal grants, from private foundations that continue funding law enforcement. When we need things like youth centers, when we need things like youth jobs and peace builders, people that we trust from our community to work within our communities and not let us have that interaction with law enforcement. This drone program shouldn't be taking place because it's said that it's going to be, right now not starting out equipped with weapons, but that is what it's eventually going to lead to. We know that's going to happen. That's probably already planned out somewhere right now, and like has mentioned, it's already been taking place in other cities across the nation. There's been so many incidences of innocent people, young men who have been killed wrongfully. And that's just going to happen more. It's going to increase because these drones are going to increase surveillance and lead law enforcement towards more innocent people who are going to be murdered. So don't approve drones. Don't let the pilot program happen. This is one of your forums here. We're all saying no.
Morning.
Morning. You can call me Akili. I'm here today in solidarity with my friends and family here and with all Angelinos in demanding that these drones stay grounded. The LAPD has proven that they are unwilling and unable to be held accountable to the taxpayers that fund them. All the nice buzzwords like limited and policy, like guidelines and accountable, like pilot program and public safety, don't hide the fact that we're talking about technology that is meant to surveil, that is meant to terrorize communities. These are machines of war, and we demand that you ground them. And speaking to LAPD accountability, Fire Chief Beck. Thank you.
Thank you. The next three speakers, Ted Hayes, Jerry Dietrich, and Christine Gadsden.
I don't see Mr. Hayes, so I'm going to speak. My name is Jerry Dietrich. Oh, is there? I'm sorry. You were before me. I looked for you. Sorry.
It would have been wise if the ACLU were here to endorse this, to indicate what level of operation they would have, what accessibility to the whole program they would have. But no, there's no ACLU. So now you have the suspicion. Because the agency, the organization designed to protect the interest of the public's privacy, is not here. Why can't that be? You don't necessarily have to have officers make a presentation. Anyone can do that. Now, to give you an idea how well we respect your ability to hold your words, let me read from the rules for the Board of Commissioners. Whenever the President anticipates the number of persons attending the board meeting may exceed the legal capacity of the boardroom, an alternate room within the PHF, that's Police Department, overflow room equipped with audio, is also equipped with TV, audio will be open to the public. I've been in the Slow-Swing Sun 11 times because they say, we're not opening any boardroom. What alternate room? So that's your room in this building, and you don't let us sit inside in the air-conditioned comfort whenever this room is full. So you think we're going to believe you're going to let this drone program operate? No, not at all. Now, there was no memorandum back there, but we need full disclosure. How long can this damn thing stay airborne? Is it battery-operated gasoline? Has it got low-intensity visual? What? None of that information provided. No, you're not going to have the drone. You know that. Full disclosure would tell us why one agency felt they should give this wealthy department 2 drones. Who wants to give you anything? And why would they do that?
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Jerry Dietrich.
Hi, I'm Jerry Dietrich. I'm with Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, and I am here to let you know that I do not want drones. I do not know a single creature who wants drones for LAPD. I mean, to me, people say to me, like, what are you going to that for? Is that controversial? And I'm like, how could it be controversial? Controversial means 50% people want it, 50% people don't. In this instance, 100% of the people do not want drones, and I join them.
Christine Gadsden, followed by Yvonne Michelle Autry, Wayne from Encino, and Patricia Ornelas.
It's beyond offensive to hear you say that you're going to seek community input while at the same time you're telling us to shut the fuck up. We're here. This is the input. The idea that drones could mitigate the loss of life and harm is not sufficient to put these things in the air. They could also inflict loss of life and harm. What could mitigate loss of life and harm would be to fire Charlie Beck. But what would definitely mitigate loss of life and harm is taking your budget and making sure that every person in this city was housed. Taking your budget and making sure that every person in this city had access to health care. Taking that budget and implementing community programs that reduce harm and reduce violence. You know what could mitigate loss of life and harm? Abolishing this police department. The idea that they will not be weaponized at first is ridiculous. Once you've approved any type of program, which apparently you're already going to do, as Mr. Soboroff said, it's a slippery slope from there. Once they're in the air, you guys can do whatever the fuck you want with them, and you will. Nobody wants these things. Fire Charlie Beck.
Yes, I think we have an overwhelming consensus no to the drones. I'd like historically to remind you of the Move 9, Tuskegee experiments, the Black Wall Street, and Rosewood, not to mention the numerous Native Americans that have been murdered by armed police officers under the guise of protection of the status quo. So for this reason and for the continued assaults on our communities, I being
myself and DA, survivors as targeted individuals, where every day I'm experimented on with laser beams and microwaves to just see how long I live, in perfection of the mind control, mass manipulation, population control methods, which will be implemented nationally, if not internationally, after this one world government is fully implemented, probably next year. So knowing where this is going and the fear of the imminent loss of power, okay, not just for the white man, but for this evil regime. This is the Illuminati's last stand, and we will stand against your attempt to marginalize and maintain status quo, because this is what this is. Whether it is people of color, conscience, black, white, male, and female, this is what is happening here. And we need good police officers, because there are people in our community that have been dehumanized. And this is why we need you to prosecute the police officers that we expose in our complaints. This is why, until we can recover our communities and community police and govern self, which is another reason why we need Skid Row neighborhood council, we need good peace officers who will, without bias, help to maintain and establish that equanimity and that justice. And there are some, and you know who you are, and you know who the bad, dirty cops are. You need to step out and stand up. You see something, say something. No to the drones.
So all you have to do is go to City Watch LA. Steve Soboroff owes thousands of dollars unpaid dog license fees. That's why he looks at shame.
So this matter has to do with...
Well, yes, it does. He's violated his oath of office. He also perjured himself on his ethics statements. So why is he on this commission? Why is he on this commission? He shouldn't even be on this commission because he's corrupt.
You're off topic.
And the drone program is another failure. But look who we have representing us. We got ourselves the Inspector General, who just took a job with USC, I hear. So he's getting the fuck out of here. We got the police chief, likes to sell us dead horses. We got the Scofaw. We got the guy over here that says vandalize any star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The taxpayers will pay for it. The one over here in the blue that never says shit for her community. And then we got this one, the sellout. The new one. You know where I saw her? She was standing outside that TRO hearing against the Black Lives Matters, ready to testify against Black Lives Matters and get a restraining order against them so they don't come to these meetings for 3 years. Yeah, see, she likes to play both sides. She and Ruthie Goldsmith, the Trojan horse. And then we have the vacant seat. She doesn't want to be here. So who represents us? We don't have any representatives. The 99.9% of us that don't want these fucking drones, nobody up there represents us, so we don't get a vote at the table. Is that fair? Now that's called unfair. The ACLU is a little waffly, so we'll just say it the way that you do in court. No to the motherfucking drones.
Patricia Ornelas, and this is the final speaker in this item.
I'm really disgusted sitting here and watching you all approve this or even thinking about approving this. I traveled to North Dakota. I was there in November of last year. So I was witness to all the trauma of all those drones flying overhead, all the humming, sleeping at night, having them just fly. Do you all even think about the trauma that you all are going to do to our youth? As it is, they are already traumatized by you all, by this police force. Do you all even think about that? Have you thought about that in your presentation while you're standing there, while you're sitting there trying to present on drones, thinking about what is going to happen to the youth? How they are going to mentally deal with having these drones flying overhead over their homes and their communities? You saw it in Compton, right? All secret and shit, but of course, I mean, the truth always comes out. So y'all can't sit here and lie and try to make us think that these drones are going to somehow only be used for certain things, because like North Dakota, right? You start packing them up with things, rubber bullets, whatever it is, and it's just going to happen. So y'all can't sit here and lie to us and try to say that you are not going to start arming them up. It's a bunch of bullshit. You all need to really wake up. The community is saying no. We don't want drones. I don't want drones for my youth that I work with.
We have no other comment cards, sir.
Okay. Just a few words before we move on to the next item. I know there's no action to be taken at this time, but I want to say that, first of all, we know that technology has the potential to save lives, and I believe that unmanned aerial devices fall in that category as well. Our challenge is going to be to develop strong policies and oversight to govern this program, to govern against misuse and mission creep. It's also critical that we get public opinion like we received today, and I'm glad that we're doing the 4 public meetings throughout every geographic bureau. I think that will be important that we hear from all stakeholders as we go through this process. I personally look forward to moving this forward and developing a pilot program. I am going to come back with a can we have order, please? I'm going to create a subcommittee to work with the department to help develop the policies for the pilot program. I'll come back to you and Chief Beck with who the 2 members of the commission will be on that subcommittee. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
They are ready to launch the drones. You're ready to launch the drones. We're going to launch the fucking drones. You're about rules, man.
So we still have C and D.
Let's move to item 3.
You're ready to launch the drone, goddamn. You don't care what people look at you.
Okay, can we have order, please? We're going to move to item 3C. Okay.
You don't give a shit what people say. Chaos. You people are pushing for civil war. Order about what? You have your assistant chief lie.
Okay, let's have order, please, so we can continue the meeting.
Did you ask her about her lie about the ACLU?
Sir, Mr. Khan.
Power is mine.
Okay, we can.
We're
not going to let you be in control of surveillance. We're not going to let you be in control of drones. Drone-free LAPD.
No drones, LA.
We can't have order. We can't have order. We're going to have to.
Drone-free LAPD. No drones, LA. Drone-free LAPD. No drones, LA. Drone-free LAPD. No drones, LA.
If we can't have order, we're going to discontinue the public portion of the meeting. Okay. Do I have a motion to clear the room and to continue the meeting with press only? Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Giving direction to clear the room of everyone except for the media so we can continue the meeting. Clear the room of everyone except for the media.
Lieutenant Caldera, I'm asking you to clear the room. All personnel shall clear the room except for the media. The meeting will not continue until the room is clear. You have 1 minute to clear the room. I'm Lieutenant Caldera, police officer for the City of Los Angeles. I hereby declare this an unlawful assembly. In the name of the people of the state of California, commandos assembled at 100 West Police Commission Room to immediately disperse, which means to break up this assembly. If you do not do so, you may be arrested or subject to other police action. Other police action may include the use of less lethal munitions, which could cause significant risk of serious injury to those who remain. Section 409 of the Police Code prohibits remaining present at any unlawful assembly. If you remain in the area which has just been described, regardless of your purpose, you will be in violation of 409. Following roads are available for you to leave through the rear door and to the lobby. You have 10 minutes to disperse.
This is even less reason.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We'll see what they ask.
I'm not sure what they want at this point. So
Well, we'll see.
I'm going to introduce you. And
Okay, very good.
Give them the option. They want to report.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
I've got a summary of the report and some of the highlights.
I will offer them.
I can offer to them if you like.
No, I'll do it. I want to introduce you.
Okay.
That way, only because.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
quorum.
Got a quorum?
Commissioner. Okay, I think we're ready to reconvene.
The Board of Police Commissioners is now back in session. We're on item number 3C, sir.
Thank you. We can take 3C and D together, and I think we can go right to questions. Yeah. And I do have some notes. Let me just pull them up.
And 3C, Department's report dated July 31st, 2017, relative to the 2016 Bias Policing and Mediation Updated Annual Report. And 3D, Department's report dated July 31st, 2017, relative to the Bias Policing and Mediation Update First Quarter 2017 Report.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning.
My only
Commissioners.
question, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We can go right to, unless there's.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
My only question was, they're trending down, the reports of bias policing, et cetera, are trending down, and across the board in both reports. And my question was, do you think, what do you think the reasons are?
Well, sir, Captain Dave Grimes,
Yeah,
from
Dave.
Internal Affairs, Administrative Investigation Division. Some of what we see on these reports, at least especially the latest report, the first quarter of 2017, is just a very small period of time. So although there only shows 40 bias policing complaints that were taken during that period, we believe that over time, as more investigations are completed and they're reclassified, that number will certainly come up. We're not seeing an amazing reduction that we could say we're...
You're not declaring...
we're not declaring
No,
it's
of course.
done. So there's no other reason except late reporting is what I believe.
Yeah, Commander Mason with Internal Affairs Group. Also, we compile these reports with the numbers of bias policing complaints based upon what we receive at intake, and what we can readily identify as a bias policing complaint based upon the complaint narrative. So if there's nothing in the complaint narrative to really indicate that it's bias policing, it's not going to make it into this data set when we prepare these reports. So when complaints start to come in, when they're completed and they're being closed out, that's when we get the true number. So you can take a look and see, even between these two reports, in the fourth quarter report, we reported 205 bias policing complaints initiated in 2016, and by the time the end of the first quarter of 2017 was completed, and we completed this report rather, that number increased from 205 to 218. So as we start getting more and more closed complaints, the numbers start to creep up a little bit. So they really do kind of level out, and they've leveled out at about the 260 range over the past 5 years. And we expect that's probably going to continue because we've seen nothing to indicate otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully with our department-wide anti-bias training, maybe we'll see some of the complaints go down, and as we expand the constitutional policing teaching as well, those number of complaints will go down.
That is our hope.
I would just remind the commission that this is such a small percentage per contact that searching for zero is probably impossible, and this is, given the 1 million contacts we have here, this is almost zero now, and it is reduced dramatically over the time periods that we've been doing these.
Sure. The one comment that I had is regarding the mediation. We continue to see that when people take advantage of it, they're satisfied with the results, both members of the community and our sworn officers. I noticed that there was a pretty high number of officers that had declined. I know that in my own travels and speaking to officers and talking at roll call, there's still misconceptions that a mediation is the equivalent of unresolved. So I think we need to continue, and I know this is something the department works on. Perhaps this is something we could work with the PPL on and get on doing a better job of getting the word out of why officers should take advantage of the mediation program. Also, I think we should look into exploring other types of complaints where we can use mediation and expand the program beyond the current bucket of complaints that we use mediation in today.
We agree, absolutely.
Yeah, no argument from us.
Yep.
We will do that, and we will continue our efforts to sell it. I think one of the things we did mention in the report, we are going to start a newsletter, basically a mediation newsletter, and try and get that word out internally. So all of our efforts are going to go towards increasing the number of complaints that actually go to mediation.
Great. Any other questions or comments on these reports? I guess we don't, there's no I'm sure we have comments, but no one's here.
We have 5 comment cards, but there are no members of the public, sir.
Okay, great. Or not great, as the case may be. Do I have a motion to approve items 3C and 3D?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
We're now on item number 4, report of the Chief of Police, Chief Beck.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'll be really brief because, as you commented, there's nobody here from the public to hear. World Police and Fire Games opening ceremonies at the Coliseum occurred last night. Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Figueroa, thank you for being there. It was quite a moving experience, seeing thousands of athletes from almost 70 nations coming to the Coliseum and seeing the Olympic flame lit for the competition. The games are ongoing. I was at the Griffith Park this morning and was the starter for the 10K competition. This afternoon I'll be at the Convention Center. There is some grappling events and also boxing. And then tomorrow, basketball starts. So my senior team will be playing at the Convention Center, and we also have our women's team competing tomorrow too, and all the other teams. So a lot of events. I would encourage commissioners to go. It is a unique opportunity to meet law enforcement and firefighters from around the world. I encourage the public to go for the same reasons. It's truly a miracle event. So I'm proud to host it in Los Angeles.
I just want to add, it was amazing to see. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, but to actually see all of the athletes from all over the world was a really special moment, I think, for the city of Los Angeles. And I just want to congratulate and commend the members of the department who put this together. This was no small feat in a limited period of time with a limited budget to pull this off. And I want to commend all the members of the department who were responsible for getting us to where we are.
It was a pretty heroic effort. So, I want to personally mention retired Deputy Chief Bill Murphy, who was at the ceremony yesterday, who initiated my request to develop the games, and then John Peters, current Deputy Chief, who is the current steward of the games. And it was them and their team and just too many people to name that have made the difference. And I know we're going to have a successful game. And I think that it's going to make LA look like what it is, which is a Olympic-ready venue that can handle very large groups of athletes. So it's very positive. Crime, we went under in homicides this past week, so that was good. We're down 3.7%. I think that's 6 fewer than last year. We still struggle with street robberies, and that gives us, because of the number of street robberies, that gives us an overall violent crime increase of 3.2% year to date. Property crime, less than a 1% increase, and so total Part 1 crime, the aggregate, is a 1.3% increase. Valley Bureau is down about 0.5% overall in Part 1 crime. The other three bureaus are up, led by Central Bureau, which is up 3.9% as compared to last year. Gang crime down 7.9%. We have had 32 officer-involved shootings so far this year, as compared to 24 at this time last year. We've also had one less fatality as compared to last year in officer-involved shootings. Guns recovered, 3,231 so far this year. That's a 7.6% increase from last year, and it's about almost 25% up from the 5-year average. Traffic collisions, we are down almost 5% in fatal traffic collisions. That's a really positive development. Driving and influence related are significantly down. Hit and runs are up incrementally about 0.2% as compared to last year. Unfortunately, fatal hit and runs are up about 25%. Motor vehicle versus pedestrian is still the most dangerous of our categories. We've had 76 fatalities so far this year, and that's a 26.7% increase in motor vehicle versus pedestrian. Bicycle traffic collisions are down about 44% in the fatal category, relatively small number of 5 versus 9. Sworn personnel on payroll, we're almost at 10,000, 9,989 sworn personnel on payroll, 2,880 civilians, almost 500 reserves, and 2,172 cadets. We had one officer-involved shooting in the past week. Pacific Patrol Division officers responded to a radio call at the 800 block of Venice Boulevard, single-family residence. The reporting person identified an individual inside that he believed to be armed. The officers made initial entry in the residence, observed the individual seated in a chair with an AR-15 rifle. The individual ignored verbal commands to drop the rifle, stood up, pointing the rifle at one of the officers, resulting in an officer-involved shooting. The shooting was fatal. AR-15 was recovered at scene and booked into evidence. And that concludes my update.
Can you give just a few brief comments on the cadet report that came out last week?
We also put out the cadet report last week. I was well covered in the media. We did two releases of information. One was the updated cadet manual, which was needed to cover social media issues and other contact ratios between sworn and cadets, and some to clarify some of the rules regarding where cadets are allowed in police stations. And then we also released the top-to-bottom review, which went into great detail on the status of the program and the issues that we found. Some of the issues that we found there were 11 issues identified. There were 12 actions taken. Some of those actions included things like providing cell phones to our YSO so that any social media conversation that takes place between them and the cadets is well documented and available to the Department for Inspection. Making sure we have adequate vans, making sure we have adequate levels of supervision, especially during off-site programs. This is also combined with our kit room audit that is ongoing. In the release of information, I reiterated what I've told you in the past, that we currently have no vehicles missing, no firearms missing. They are doing an extensive review of the radios. probably will end up having some radios missing from the inventory, but I don't think those are going to be tied to cadets. Those are going to be tied to people moving within the department and not turning their radios back in. The reports are available. I'm glad to provide them to the commissioners.
We all have copies.
I also informed the media that the Inspector General would be following up after they have reviewed the contents of the surveys that were conducted at the 29 cadet posts.
Thank you. Mr. Bustamante, when are we expecting the IG's report?
Right now, we looked at the information the department has provided. We've been in contact with Chief Moore. We have an ongoing audit, and we're looking at a lot of the same information. We have a couple other areas that we're looking into. I expect probably the second week of September we'd have a report for the commission to review.
Great, thank you. In addition to the subcommittee that I announced earlier on the unmanned aerial devices, which will consist of myself and Commissioner Goldsmith, I'm also creating a subcommittee on police youth programs, which will cover the cadet program and PALS and any other programs, which will consist of myself, for right now, myself and Commissioner Figueroa Villa. Thank you.
I would just like to request hard copies of the report.
I think we have them in our
Hard
office.
one?
It's in your office.
Okay.
Okay, we have 4 public comment cards, and again, no members of the public are present. We're on item number 5, public comment period. We have 8 comment cards, and no members of the public are present. We'll move on to item number 6, closed session items. We have 3 comment cards, and no members of the public are present. The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item number 6A, 1, 2, and 6B.
Thank you.
In accordance with Government Code 54957.
Okay, oh yeah.
The Board of Police Commissioners has concluded its work in closed session. We are back in open session. In closed session, item number 6A1 was discussed, and the Chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. In closed session, item number 6A2 was discussed, and the Chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. And in closed session, item number 6B was discussed. Mr. Vice President?
We'd like to adjourn the meeting today in memory of James Yoshimura and send our best to his family as well. We have a motion for...
Second.
Some motion,
A
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi, I'm Gina Ray, and this is my dog Whippet. We're from Winnetka. Get it, girl. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35. This is our city and our channel.
The more we get together, the more we get together, the happier we'll be. 'Cause your friends are my friends and my friends are your friends. The more we get together, the